Hola, mi amigos, and cómo está? Welcome back to another episode of Hats in History. I'm the Gypsy Hatter. I'm joined by Jake Gibbons of the Outlaws in the Golden State and Coop's Place Studios. How you doing, Jake?
Fair to middling. How about yourself, Chase?
Doing well, brother.
Hell
Thank
yeah.
you for having us out.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for coming. What are we
Well,
talking about today?
we're going to be covering some California history from around the Gold Rush era, and it's about a wild case of a mysterious marauder and a captivating captor, Joaquin Marietta.
Oh, what a bodacious bandito.
The bandit Joaquin, the shadow, the fox, the ghost, and he was kind of a
He
folk.
does what to the ghost?
he was kind of a folk hero all on his own to the Californios of the time. But before we get to him, we're going to kind of back up and cover a little bit of a history lesson. In 1846-47, there was the Bear Flag Revolt, where a lot of miners and Indians and Mexicans rode out from Sutter's Fort into Vallejo and captured the government of California at the time and declared our own independence. And that's where the Republic of California comes from and our actual bear flag that we keep to this day.
Cool. That's awesome. I thought the Bears came from the San Francisco Bears.
No. Yeah, no, it's from the Grizzlies that were roaming around the foothills at the time. And after that, we get into the Mexican-American War, and Fremont leads troops down into San Diego and things. And it's around that time, the close of the war, that in 1848, we discover gold at Sutter's Mill. And thus ensues the gold rush. And hundreds of thousands of people influx from all around the world into California almost overnight. And it is a huge thing on the population. It changes a lot of different dynamics quite instantly. And because there is people here, you have Mexicans and Californios, you have natives and the missions and things. You even have Russian fur trappers down the line from Alaska. And it's around these times that things get rather tense all around the foothills. There's a section of the Sierra foothills near Sacramento that Joaquin had his ranchero on, and him and his brother were in the mining business, as everyone was back then. And while he was off selling his gold dust, a band of gold panners had come through and actually just massacred his family while he was gone. Assaulted his wife, left her for dead, and strung his brother from a tree. And when he gets back to the atrocity, he's just livid. He's full of rage. And he takes off into the hills and just starts massacring white miners anywhere he can find them. Stealing horses as he goes along and just trying to fulfill his vengeance. And that is an impressive feat for one man against the world at that time. But it's around then that you start getting reports, not just from the valley or the foothills, but across California, from San Diego to Shasta, and a little past it up across the Oregon border, about this bandit Joaquin, this menace that's roving the countryside at night and killing men, stealing their horses, and looting their houses. But he seems to be everywhere at once. And come to find out, he has amassed a gang after a couple years of anywhere between 40 to 70 men is what they account for. And they split off. There's what's known as the Five Joaquins, his lieutenants and things, and his best mate, which would be a man called Three Finger Jack. Wonder why he got that name. But he was a bit of a headhunter, a man that collected ears on a necklace, from what we're told. But him and his lieutenants were all pretty bad banditos themselves, going all around the countryside and just causing havoc and chaos. And even up towards our neck of the woods, one of the main stories about Joaquin himself was he was a master of disguise. He was able to kind of blend anywhere he went. And he was on the roads from the gold flats out in Marysville, California. And he was come upon by a miner telling him stories about this bounty for this bad hombre that's on the loose. If you get him or if you see him, you let us know. Well, it turns out he's talking about Joaquin to Joaquin. And he strips off his cloak and his bandana and he shoots the man dead there in the road and takes off. And there's stories like that all across California, down in Fresno and up here, even up towards like Redding and Chico area. And they're just widespread and on the loose. Thus was the resurrection or the institution of the California Rangers, was to actually hunt Joaquin down and the rest of his men. And
So they've been doing this ice shit for forever.
forever, dude. We've been taking out Mexicans left and right since the dawn. And yeah, they take off all over, investigating into different crimes and different murders. And they get pretty close on his trail a couple of times and have a couple of turncoats that almost give him up. But he just seems to be one step ahead of them the whole time. And out there in a little tavern, kind of in between Yuba City and Chico, he was supposedly in the back of the pub, just kind of listening in, real quiet, hooded and mysterious. And a couple of cowboys come in talking about how when they find Joaquin, they're going to kill the fox. They're going to kill him and get this bounty. And they just kind of keep going on. And he just kind of sits there. He doesn't make no noise about it. He just lets them keep drinking. And keep drinking, getting himself up into a fury, really. And finally, he jumps up on the poker table, strips off his cloak, declares himself Joaquin, and he lets one round off into the main man. And everybody else just kind of sits there shocked, drunk on their stoops, and doesn't know how to react. And after he really realizes he's surrounded by quite a few miners and cowboys, he hops off the table and steals the fastest horse, light shuck out of town. But it's quite a while until they start catching up with him. And finally, Captain Love and his ranger band get up into the mountains. And from the stories they tell, they came across the band at night with about 50 stolen horses. And they killed them all. They took the head of Joaquin as proof for the bounty, and then they took the hand of Three Finger Jack and brought him back down to Sacramento, really to Sutter's Fort, and had him in front of Fremont, who was the military governor at the time, as proof, get paid out and things. And they actually toured around with the jars of whiskey with the head and hand in it throughout the circuses of the West for quite a few years, which is a wild thing to think about in modern times, paying a nickel to go see a head in a jar. But it is kind of telling of where we were in the society at the time.
Yeah, it'd be nice to buy anything for a nickel.
Yeah, this is pre-inflation, that's for sure. But it's a wild influx of cultures and ideals, and when he is taken down, he kind of lives on for probably about 40, 50 years after the West dies as the inspiration for the character of Zorro, this folk hero of the Mexican people that, shows that we will endure, we do live on, we've been here forever, and we'll probably be here forever, no matter who's in charge.
Yeah, and I believe that. It's a pretty impactful story. I really liked that story as a kid, too. I remember watching Zorro a lot, and that's kind of cool that it was actually inspired by real events.
Absolutely.
I remember they walk around with the jar.
Mm-hmm.
And in Zorro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the little tidbits that they add in there. And it is very neat. And it shows kind of what we do with folklore as time goes on. Is you start with a rebel, a bandit, really an outlaw, running around the hills kind of committing atrocities. But in the same way, he was born out of tragedy. It's kind of that old school anti-hero, backstory. You don't get Deadpool without a little bit of scars.
Yeah.
But I thought it was quite interesting. There's a chapter of E. Clampus Vitus down in the valley that's named after the bandit Joaquin. And it is very telling of the little history that gets lost in the cracks. Because we aren't just the gold rush or the missions or the railroads. There's so many little stories in between that just get lost to time.
Yep. That's a fact.
Well, thank you for sitting in on that, Jake. I appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, man. That was really interesting. I can't wait for the next one.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah, man.
Well, thank you, guys. That's been another episode of Hats and History. I hope you learned something. If you have any suggestions for something you'd like to hear about out here, let us know. Thank you again to Coop's Place Studios for having us out. God bless you, and see you down the trail.